If you can work your way to your seats, we will we'll get started in talking about the 2012 ELCA Youth Gathering. This portion of the training, I'm going to be kind of tag teaming it a little bit with Siobhan and with Catherine, just because Catherine, for the big gathering picture, she's one of the adults that's on one of the theme days, the planning team, and so we are actually very fortunate. Catherine knows a lot of details that other people in our position might not know, and so it's kind of nice that she's able to share those to help prepare us. And then Siobhan is one of the leaders for the training of the Practice Discipleship Day, and so I'll leave that for her to talk about a little bit. But let's take Catherine's going around passing out this PowerPoint. It might not be, the first 10, 15 slides might not be in the same order on your sheet as I have up here. We've changed the order just a little bit, but all the information is the same on the slides. So the vision of the gathering, the main thing is these 5 lines at the bottom in regards to the vision of the gathering. Live amongst God's faithful people, hear the word of God and share in the Lord's Supper, proclaim the good news of God in Christ through words and deed, serve all people, following the example of Jesus, and strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Good old baptismal promises. And it's wrapped around inviting participants to return to New Orleans and remembering who we are in Christ and acting in response by forming faithful, wise, and courageous leaders. The theme verse for the gathering, in case you haven't noticed, is Citizens with the Saints. The theme verse is Ephesians 2, 14 through 20. Jesus is our peace. In his life and death on the cross, Jesus broke down the dividing wall so that we are no longer strangers and outsiders, but we are citizens with the saints and also members of the household of God. The foundation of God's house was built of apostles and prophets, and Jesus, the cornerstone, holds it all together. So we're going to take a look at the 3 main themed days throughout the gathering. The first one being practice peacemaking. And we'll talk about, when we get to the schedule, what days we're going to be doing what things, because our whole synod is going to all be on the same schedule as far as the themes in each of the days. But the first one being practice peacemaking. As it says, as a baptized child of God, how do I practice peacemaking in my home, community, school, across the street, and around the world? And so that's going to be issues that's going to be addressed on that day. And it's going to have hands-on interactive stuff that we're going to be able to take home with us. To kick off that day, we're going to be going into the convention center when practice peacemaking is our theme of the day, and we're going to be up on the 2nd floor. And so to give you an idea of the size of the convention center, just the main floor of the convention center, where we're going to have where there's going to be some interactive stuff for the youth, is equal to the 18 football fields. So if you haven't been there, I mean, it's about as big of a building as you can imagine. There is a 2nd floor to that, and so we're going to be gathering in ballrooms as groups, and you got to think there's going to be probably about 11 to 12,000 of us on each of these themed days. The gathering is going to be split up into thirds, and there's going to be some training, some talking, some speakers, and then we're going to be moving on through separate rooms throughout the center and doing a flow of interactive activities for the youth to help them with understanding practice peacemaking. And Catherine, if you want to speak any more to that?
I think just as I'm listening to Chad and I'm thinking of what you might be hearing, having not been immersed in all of it, what's helpful to know is that every day of the program days, it begins with the dwelling in the Word. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to come in at your arrival time and come into the auditorium. And then the purpose of flowing them after that, that's about a half hour, you flow through where traditionally workshops would be, but all of the learning that's going to happen is interactive learning. And think think of the compassionate justice Siobhan just spoke about, that's what peacemaking is. How do we get into the advocacy and justice going beyond just giving handouts to our neighbors, but really making a difference in the world? That's what it's going to be looking at. And then coming down into what was formerly known as the Interaction Center, it's going to be called the Practice Peacemaking Center. And all of the activities flow around different themes, and so there'll be colored banners that you'll pay attention to, that if you see blue it means something, if you see red it means something. It helps you find where you need to go, but it also gathers you around different areas of learning that goes on. In the guidebook that will be coming out shortly on the website, and I'll put it into the Synod Journey update, and I'll put a special link on our gathering links page on our website, because I know the gathering site's a little difficult to navigate. In the guidebook, we'll list exactly what all those different learning opportunities are. And I really encourage you to make sure that you take a look at that and that you come with a plan. Something you're going to keep hearing from Chad is you got to come into the gathering with a plan and not just make it up as you go. There's too much stuff to do. There's way too much in 18 football fields of size of things to do in one day. So you've got to think through, what do we want to do as a large group? What do we want to do as sending people out in groups of 3 or 4, depending on the size of your group, to do, and then come back together as. So.
The next day, I'm going to turn it over to Siobhan to talk a little bit about the practicing discipleship.
So the Practice Discipleship Day is a day that really looks at those 7 practices again. And so you will, that morning, gather your group in time to walk over to whatever ballroom space that we are assigned, and we'll know that soon, but it will not be at our hotel. So you'll have to plan some walking time. You need to be there about 8:30 with your group, and those doors will open at 9, and you will sit with your congregational group at that point for a worship, which is our first practice. And that worship will be, it's just going to be our synod that day in that space. It will be people who have been on the journey and also people who have just come for the gathering, all joined together for that worship. The synod band will be playing, and then there will be youth and adults from our synod involved in that worship service, a powerful worship service about breaking down the walls. And then following that worship service, you will watch a little video piece on discipleship in general, and there'll be a couple of mixers that will then divide you into small groups of about 10, each with an adult or a youth small group leader. And you will not be with your congregation at that time. You'll be divided into a mix of people from all over. We really want to scramble people up so they get a chance to meet other people within our synod. And in those small groups, what will happen is there will be an MC up front who will introduce one of these next practices, and then toss it to the small group leader, who will lead their small group in some discussion and activity and Bible study around that practice. And then it'll bounce back up to the MC, who will introduce the next practice, and back to the small group leader, and back and forth until we have worked our way through those remaining 6 practices that follow worship. I mean, what a cool thing, and I think, there will be a lot of small groups all over that space learning together about those practices. Following all of those small group experiences, there'll be a little closing and ascending, and then you will return to your congregational groups for a very important part of this day. It's a discipleship tour, and Catherine's going to hand those out. And it is a chance you have, during the practice discipleship morning, learned about those practices and practiced them a little bit, and then you are going to go out into the city to do them. So there will be 7 activities, and you've got to look at the rough draft of those. The kids will get them that day as like a trifold plastic travel brochure kind of thing, so it'll look like an actual travel tour guide. And you will go out from there, and maybe right away with your congregational group you decide to have lunch, and you do the serve activity. And then maybe you go and you find a water area, and you do that next practice. And so you may spend your whole afternoon that day doing this entire discipleship tour if you choose. You may find that you want to really focus on 2 of these practices that afternoon, and then the next day do another 2 during your free time. And then the next day another 2 during your free time. And space them out over your experience a little bit. But this gathering is really crafted in a way that this is a crucial piece. You really need to make sure that you build these practices in. And they may not look like like a lot on paper, but when you actually do them in the city, it is just a powerful discipleship experience. So when you are doing your planning and you looking at scheduling, you have this early to think about how do you want to build this tour into your overall gathering experience. So that'll be, it should be a really powerful day. And then the neat thing is that this isn't just designed for New Orleans. You could bring this back here and divide your congregation into small groups or hand them out to your congregation and tell them to go forth into their communities and do these practices as well as we continue that compassionate justice piece at home. Anything else?
A couple of logistical details for that day. Siobhan said that you want to arrive at the ballroom about 8:30. Just kind of put into your planning. We will know this week which ballroom we will be in, but expect about a half-hour walk. So plan to leave the hotel at 8 o'clock that morning. And this is a long day that we have in the morning, so make sure that this day especially your kids come well-fed and ready to go because they've got a long time. They're going to be in that ballroom until about 12:45 before we're sent out that we can grab some lunch. And just when you start wondering about why such a long morning, here's the deal behind that. We knew as we were planning the Practice Discipleship Day that we wanted to accomplish a lot of stuff. We wanted to help kids learn to articulate their faith, and to do that is by using the faith practices. We also knew that if we couldn't afford to buy them lunch in hotel rooms where it costs $25, $30 for a box lunch, unless if you wanted to pay $500 for the gathering registration fee, I'm thinking not. And so we also knew that if we sent them out for lunch and took a break to come back, that only about half the group would come back. And for our synod leaders who would be so good at making sure their kids came back, and those other leaders that didn't make that happen, your kids would be really upset with you, and I didn't want to have that tension within that group. And so I think if you think of the movement, it's here, out a little bit further, and then bringing it home. So one of the technical things is you're technically not supposed to bring food into ballrooms because they want you to buy their $25 box lunches. But we're not just thinking out loud, you were not checking backpacks, and if granola bars should fall into those backpacks and then into the mouths of kids who get extra hungry, I wouldn't know about it. I'll be at another ballroom hoping another synod that's crashing. So
one note too in this is this is a day that you really should be an able adult. You will really make this experience. And a powerful thing to remember is, yes, we are just together as a synod, but the worship and the curriculum piece that you are using is being done by every other synod too. So while we're in small group worships, to think about 36,000 people having the same experience too, in different rooms in different ways, is a pretty neat way to think about that day.
The third day is Practice Justice. For the Practice Justice Day, we're going to be meeting at the Superdome in the morning. And when we show the schedule, there's going to be different times that our groups within our own synod will probably be meeting at the Superdome. So in our time together, there's going to be servant companions that are going to lead us through scripture, videos, participate in dwelling in the Word, like Catherine had mentioned. It's going to kind of shape what your day is going to look like. There's going to be an anointing before we head out on our buses. And then when we leave from the Superdome with transportation that's provided by the gathering, you're going to get one of these focus areas that will be coming out in May on your congregational confirmation on the web. And so it could be affordable housing or cultural literacy, play and learn, literacy matters, environmental sustainability, community care, relationships matter, or visual statements. So you could be doing anything from going into the forested jungle of Louisiana and clearing out debris so that some of the healthier plants don't get smothered, all the way to going door to door, taking surveys of neighbors and finding out how the community can serve them better. Other information that you're going to find out in May on your confirmation is you're going to learn your gate assignment, launch and arrival time, bus number, type of project. Some of the projects might require an additional form. This is not a synod form. This is a national gathering form. Not Catherine. You know, but if it's one that involves some of the work that you see youth doing where there's potential risk, they want to make sure the liability is covered. And then it might have a list of some possible items that you would need to bring. Another thing about the Practice Justice is that we're going to be receiving these bright orange shirts again. So each day of the gathering, each of the theme days, you're going to see about 11,000, 12,000 people walking around in bright orange convict-looking shirts. And that everyone must wear tennis shoes. You will not be allowed to go on the Practice Justice Day if anyone has open-toed shoes. So make sure that those are brought along. Pants and shorts are going to be depending on your service area. So we're going to take a look at kind of a quick synopsis of what the schedules are going to look like from Wednesday to Sunday. Some of this is going to be dependent on you and what you form for a schedule for your group. The stuff that's in black at the beginning is all going to be referenced to the theme days of the gathering. The stuff that's in red is the stuff that happens consistently each day throughout the gathering. So on Wednesday, for those that are going on the Synod Journey, your morning is going to start off with a Walmart run from 7:30 to 8:15 if additional supplies or things are needed for your group. And then from 8 to 8:45, breakfast at the hotels. At 8:45 is when the buses depart. Notice the capital letters. That's when it departs, not when you're supposed to start to leave your hotel room. And then when we get to New Orleans, for those on the Synod Journey, the buses are going to be dropping us off at Hall D at those doors. If you're not going on the Synod Journey, that's where the doors you're going to want to go through for where registration begins. So you'll walk into Hall D, you're going to go up some escalators, there's going to be some tables, and this is for your whole youth group doesn't go up. This is just for the adult leaders. And you're going to have your confirmation letter printed from the congregational site of your website. And that is going to have all the information. If you do not have that, there's going to be a little kiosk set up where you'll be able to go and print. But when you think about 34,000 people coming to these events, thousands of adults and primary leaders, you want to make sure that you've got that confirmation letter with you so that you don't have to try to go to that kiosk and try to print it off. If a backup to the backup to the backup is that Catherine will have additional copies printed for you if there is any hiccups, and we will have someone from our synod that's going to be at the registration booth.
Lori Hanser,
who
you'll meet during the journey, will be at the registration desk.
Yeah, to help with problem solving and whatever else. Okay. After you get registered for the gathering, adult leaders, you are going to be going into a ballroom and you'll have about a 20-30 minute training from gathering staff. And then the youth are going to be just kind of roaming around the city, ripping it up. No. Actually, the youth, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be going into the Practice Peacemaking Center, that big 18 football field. There's going to be high ropes course, bumper cars, inflatables, volleyball. There's going to be Habitat for Humanity, lots of hands-on things to keep them active and plugged in. And so when you finish that leader training, the primary leader, and if your group is really big, 30, 40 people, you can take another adult leader or two if you need to, but that's where you'll be receiving the backpacks, and they are backpacks. They're not the sachos with the one strap, and they kind of have the shoelace type straps with the little bag in the back, and with a Bible in it, and they're not the big 4-inch thick Bibles that you got in 2009. They're going back to the 2006 smaller Old Testament, New Testament type Bibles. They ended up with a lot of Bibles at the airport because of the excess weight. But they did get to put to some good use and some ministry there too. One thing I forgot to mention though is when you get to the convention center, in fact, this is just kind of a rule of thumb, when you're on the bus, have everything that you need for on the bus up with you, because anything that gets put below the bus is then going to be off limits. We're not going to harass the drivers with opening and closing those doors 40 million times on our way down. When you get to New Orleans, adult leaders especially, you need to have everything with you on the bus, and when you get off the bus, you need to take everything with you, and everything that you take with you, you're going to be responsible for caring for about 4 or 5 hours. Okay. So after registration, after you're done with everything at the convention center, you're going to be going out for lunch on your own. So you're going to want to make sure you've got a plan of where you're going to go, have 2 or 3 options, and then you're going to be heading over to the Hyatt French Quarters, and the Hyatt is for our whole Synod. So whether you're on the Synod Journey or National Gathering, the whole Synod is staying at the Hyatt French Quarters. And you're going to have an assigned time that your bus will be meeting you at the front of the Hyatt. We are on the corner of Canal Street and Bourbon Street, and so the bus cannot go into the French Quarters down Bourbon Street, so the bus will be right on Canal Street. And if your assigned time comes from Catherine as 1:30, please make a note to be there or be ready at 1:15. We don't want to have the buses sitting out on this busy main street in New Orleans any longer than they have to. And we want to be ready and to quickly unload because there's 10 buses for the Synod Journey group. And 10, right? Okay. And they're going to be wanting to shuffle through also. So it's going to be a quick grab and snatch. And then when you get into the hotel, they'll have room keys and everything will all be ready. And more details on that will be coming out as we get a little bit closer to date. Once you get everything into the hotel, and depending on what the rest of your time frame looks like, you might have a little bit of free time with your group, and we'll talk about some options, things that you could do with your group while you're waiting to go on to the next thing. But one option that's going to be available each day from 4 to 6 o'clock is Champion Square. And this is something new that was built after the 2009 gathering. In fact, it was even built after the Saints won the Super Bowl, was this huge area right next to the Superdome, set up for kind of the tailgating and partying, music, things like that. And so there's going to be a stage with music, plenty of vendors all around, and different sorts of entertainment, and a nice kind of place for you to be able to hang out for a little while before getting ready to go into the dome. And we'll also talk about this a little bit later, but you won't have to be standing outside the dome for 2 hours hoping and praying that you can try to get a seat on the floor. There's something neat that they did this year that's going to be very helpful in regards to that. But at 6 o'clock is when the dome opens and seating opens. From 7 to 9 o'clock is when the mass gathering at the dome begins. And then from 9 to 10:45 is going to be community life back at hotels, and we'll talk a little bit later exactly what entails with community life. So we're on to Thursday. We're into our first full day into New Orleans, and that is going to be, for our group, we are all going to be, our Synod each day has the same theme. So the first day for our whole Synod is going to be practice discipleship. And if you notice on your congregation or confirmation on the website, it might say that your color is gold. We're all going to have these gold wristbands to signify that we are on that schedule of the theme days. And so the first one being practice discipleship. Like Catherine and Siobhan both said, 8:30 is your arrival time. And from the dome, from the hotel to the dome, I would say 30 minutes or maybe a little bit more if your group is a little bit larger, or you're like me and you just naturally walk slow. You'll want to plan a little bit more time. But at 8:45, doors open. 9 o'clock is when it starts. And they will be very prompt about starting at 9 o'clock. And then we'll be in that space. And lunch then is also going to be on your own. And when you leave, like they said, that's when you're going to be starting your discipleship tour around the city of New Orleans. And you can incorporate that any of the days while you're in New Orleans, out walking about. And Catherine had mentioned that there is a rumor going around that there's going to be a webinar coming soon. Not a rumor, it'll happen. Eventually, sometime. No dates stated, but about the Practice Discipleship Day and about the discipleship tour to kind of help prepare you a little bit more, because you're going to want to have conversations with your youth about this. It's not just going to want to, you go in the morning and then you call it quits and just have a fun day after that and not be able to relate anything back to it. This is an option. At 1 o'clock each day is when the Practice Peacemaking Center will open to the whole entire gathering group. So if you are struggling at any time in the afternoon of options for your group, or your group is like, that's a really cool place, we want to go back and do more, it's so big we didn't get to experience enough. Starting at 1 o'clock is when that opens, and you'll be able to go back with your group and do some more. 4 o'clock is the tailgating, mass gathering, community life. And then following community life, at 10:45 each night, starting on Thursday night, is a thing called the Final 15. And some of you might have experienced this in 2009, but they encourage that from 10:45 to 11 o'clock, that everybody just stops. And you can get into small groups, and they want you to pray for those final 15 minutes. And you know, depending on who's in your group and how you form it, you know, you've got some different ways to do it. But in your little guidebooks that you get will be some options for your final 15 on how to pray, what to pray for, things like that. You know, there was some confusion in 2009. A lot of people thought that, well, everything ends at 10:45, so that's when I should just start walking outside or go back to the hotel room or things like that. No, they're really strongly encouraging. Imagine if 34,000 people all at the same time just stopped and prayed. What's that? A flash mob, like a flash mob of prayer throughout the morning. How awesome would that be? Okay? And then they're really stressing the midnight lights out. I know for many of you, especially if you're going on that Synod Journey or just coming from Minnesota all the way down, you're going to be tired. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. You're going to want to make sure that your kids are getting enough rest so that, you know, they're not having to put toothpicks in their eyelids the next couple days and have the energy to experience everything. So, Friday is our practice peacemaking day, which will be at the convention center. And you notice that there's some different times scheduled for possible arrival times. You'll find out on your synod or congregational confirmation as to what time your arrival is scheduled for that Friday. Excuse me, again, the times that are shown there, those are your arrival times. That's when we're expecting groups to be there. After that, lunch will be on your own, and then it's a similar schedule for the rest of that day. And now again, you know, the things like this 1 o'clock practice peacemaking at the convention center, that's going to be stuff that's going to be optional to your group as an alternative for free time. Saturday is our practice justice day. This one too has many different possible arrival times and launch times for your group. Again, the confirmation letter is going to have that information. And for the practice justice day, lunch is going to be provided for your group. So while you're out on your practice justice focus area, your group, each person will be getting like a 6-inch Subway sub. You'll be responsible for your own drinks, so you want to make sure, especially on each of these days, make sure your kids have their water bottles, have them full. Now, and it says that, you know, lunch is on your own. Well, you know, you are going to be getting a lunch while you're on this, but if your group is leaving, arriving at the Dome at 6:30 a.m., you know, you might be having an earlier lunch, and so you might want to factor in maybe another time to pop into a local restaurant, get another bite to eat, depending on how you set up your schedule. Okay? Otherwise, the rest of the evening is the same throughout the day. Now remember, just again, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all these times during the afternoon is when you can continue to do the practice discipleship tour. So on Sunday, 9 to 11:30 is going to be the closing worship at the Superdome. And after that, we're going to be finding out some more information from our Synod leaders in regards to what that means for those on the Synod Journey. If you're not on the Synod Journey, you'll be making arrangements on where your group's going to meet and get transportation before you go on to your next thing. So with the schedule, the expectations, it's expected that you're going to attend your assigned practice peacemaking, practice discipleship, and practice justice. There's, you know, this event obviously is not something that's just planned in a year or in just 2 years. From the last day of the gathering in 2009 all the way up to the day this gathering begins, they are working furiously on all of this and all the details and getting leaders and everything in place. And if you've ever worked on something really, really hard and you had no one show up for it that said they would, you know how disappointing that can be. And for us, for your youth, for the adults in your congregation, for the community and all the fundraising, everything that they've been working so hard for since August. So all of a sudden decide you're going to skip one of these days, or you know, oh, we can get there a half hour late or things like that, and you're going to be out of the flow of it, would just be a travesty. You need to make sure that when you're putting your schedule for your time in New Orleans, that this stuff becomes the first key piece that you plug into your schedule. Everything else is based around this.
Can I just add a couple things to that?
Yes.
It's not, I want to make sure it's clear, it's not for the team leaders that you are showing up here for the days of what Chad is talking about. It is the investment that you and your congregation are making in these young people, and the reason that we are here. And all the learning is connected to each other, so to miss one is you miss greater than just one. By missing one of those points. So if your kids are complaining or wanting to say, oh, can't we just sleep in, put that into context for them, and especially use the language of investment. All of you have done huge fundraising, and the congregation is expecting that they will grow in those ways.
So a little bit about the mass gatherings at the Dome. I just want to clarify that it's not a formal worship. When we get into that Dome, it's not going to be something similar to what you might experience in a congregation on Sunday, but it's a large group experience. There's going to be DJ music playing. Peter Mayer, who's headed up the music and the band for the last couple of gatherings, is going to be doing that again. Speakers, videos, some popular Christian artists within the music realm is going to be there. And so this is one of those types of things where when you get to the Dome on Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, okay, this is kind of your battery charger. This is what is preparing your hearts, getting you fired up and energetic and ready for everything that you're going to be doing throughout the day. And so when you leave that Dome, it's sending you out for your practice peacemaking, practice justice, practice discipleship, and then we're regrouping back together as a large community, a larger body of the church than many of us are familiar with. And then when you get to that Sunday, we have that closing worship, we're taking everything that we have taken in those 4 or 5 days and leaving out of that Dome and taking it back to our congregation, our community, creation, all those different things. It's a key piece to helping us stay centered and focused as to the mission and vision of the gathering. Music, speakers, dancing, worship, everything that you're going to want to know as far as who's going to be talking, playing music, things like that. I pulled these straight from the Youth Gathering website that's linked from the elca.org. And this is just a small taste of who has signed contracts and they've gotten connected with. There's going to be many, many more as those contracts get finalized with different bands and groups. And they'll be kind of posting them. In fact, there could be more even posted now since I put this together. So if your group is wanting to know, I know that for some of the kids in 2009, getting a chance to listen and see Skillet live was a huge high for them. And so they were, as that information was being released, they were pretty excited about it. Some of you might have no idea who Skillet is, but you're the adult and you just go, yeah, Skillet! Seating in the Dome, okay? In the past, people have stood outside San Antonio, New Orleans, 90 degrees, sun beating down. I stood there once with a pizza box on my head because I was so hot for 2 hours hoping to get onto the floor of the Superdome to have that experience. They've come up with a solution. On our Practice Discipleship Day, we're going to have each group, when you go through Practice Discipleship, is going to have another wristband that you wear for that day. There's going to be a designated gate on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the Practice Discipleship groups that have participated in that day. And so that gate will open 30 minutes earlier for those groups, so for our whole synod. And then you'll have access to the floor and the lower tier. So we're all not going to all fit on the floor during that time, but the lower tier will be available. And then the rest of the gathering groups for those days are going to be at a different gate. and have access to the different levels of the dome. And I strongly recommend, you know, taking a view of these mass gatherings in the dome from different spots throughout the Superdome. It's kind of a different experience depending on where you're sitting.
Just to clarify, you don't get an additional wristband. The color of our wristband will be on the rotation, and so that color will get you in that gate just for that day. So as you're catching it, what you need to be paying attention to are gates and some of those specifics that are on your confirmation letter in different places. But it is just this date that you can get in early.
So just a couple notes about the dome and the mass gatherings or large gatherings. It is air conditioned in the dome, so if you're one that chills pretty easily, you might want to bring along an extra long sleeve or an extra layer. No mosh pitting or body surfing. Al, I'm talking to you about that. Water bottles will be allowed in the dome, so make sure that your kids have those full, have them brought in so they've got hydration during that time. Encourage no texting in the dome. I know some different groups might have different rules when it comes to cell phones and the covenants and things like that, but when we get to those areas, you never know what speaker or what band or what happens that's going to impact a different kid. And so if you're letting them all have their phones out and texting, they're going to be disengaging. They're not going to be thinking about what's happening there. They're going to be thinking about what's home. And I know Catherine brought the point about, you know, it's not uncommon for you to get a text as a youth that says, this is your girlfriend, I'm breaking up with you. What does that do for you when you're in the dome for this mass gathering and you just found out you broke up with your girlfriend of 2 years? I mean, you're gone. So, you know, unless it's encouraged by the gathering group, because sometimes they want to do surveys and they have you text to a certain number and then you can see it up on the big screens, we're encouraging you to help your kids stay focused, the mission and vision, why are they here, and just keep those phones in the pocket. No saving seats on the floor in the dome. Purses, bags will be checked before going into the dome. Security is always an issue. They want to make sure that we're safe. And then Champion Square, the little tailgating area, will be open for 30 minutes after the large gatherings at the dome take place in the evening. They also said, the vendors said, you know, yes, we're open for 30 minutes, but if there's a line, we're not going to be closing the doors and saying bye-bye, we're not going to serve you any more food. They'll continue to serve if people are needing some food afterwards. To touch a little bit on community life, you saw that in the schedule. After the large gatherings at the Dome, back at the hotels, they're going to have different things available for the youth. There is nothing that's going to be happening for community life at the Hyatt French Quarters, so you'll know where these other hotels are at, map them out. If you want to partake in any of these things, there are going to be 9, well, I shouldn't say that. Are there going to be any of the dances at Hyatt? Not yet. Okay, so I was right. So at 8 different hotels, there's going to be different dances that are going to be going on, different themed dances. There's going to be concerts at the Marriott, fun clubs, that's where, you know, with the inflatables and the jousting and all those different types of things. At the Hyatt, Sheraton, Hilton, Riverside. Gathering Idol will be taking place at the Hilton, and then evening prayer to Zay at the Astor. Again, you've got that information now on your slides. You can map those hotels, see where they're at, and I'm sure the information is also going to be in your gathering book as to what's going to be taking place and where.
Just to help you, so you don't feel bad that where we're at, the Astor is right across the street from us, and the Sheraton is 2 blocks down. One of the Marriotts that will have concerts is 2 blocks away from us. So we are nice and close, and yet don't have to deal with all the people in our hotel.
And that's huge. That's really huge. We've really looked out, and we'll talk a little bit later about the hotel situation. But again, just to clarify though, you'll want to have these mapped out so you know where they're at. Okay. Offerings. Just going to touch real quick. If you haven't looked already on the ELCA website, there's 3 different ways for you to be able to give, or your group can give. There's offering collected during worship on Sunday. There's the 100 Wells Challenge, and there's going to be gathering receptacles at the gathering for your group's contribution, or you can mail them into the ELCA ahead of time. And then finally, the last one is the in-kind offering of children's book. In 2009, they asked, literacy is such a huge issue in the South, in New Orleans area, not just youth, but adults too. So in 2009, they asked 2,000 participants to help with the literacy project and bring books. Those 2,000 people from the gathering group brought over 100,000 books. So this year, they thought, why don't we ask all the groups to bring books and set the goal at 1 million books to bring into this city. Catherine is coming around with some information in regards to that. There is a book list, certain books that they're looking for that are going to be able to tie into the culture. You know, imagine if it's a predominantly African-American neighborhood and we bring them books of just all children that are Caucasian children. They're not going to be able to relate to well. The speech, the language in the books, everything's going to be a little bit different. So they've got specific books that they're going to be looking for. And they've also partnered with Scholastic to be able to, if you'd like to purchase books online and then have Scholastic deliver them. Or if there is, you know, Catherine had mentioned before that if you'd like your group to have that feeling of being able to bring some books and donate the physical, we bought this is what we're doing. You know, you could purchase maybe enough books so each kid in your group had one that they could donate. Or you can bring more. There will be space underneath the bus allowed for books from that book list to be brought down and donated.
Speaking of putting them underneath the bus, as we'll get to that list in a second, if you're a congregation that goes crazy about this, we can't fit 1 million books underneath the bus. So if you do anticipate having a lot of those, let me know and we will work something out. Some of your buses are very full and we may need to shift stuff around.
How cool would that be though if one congregation brought 1 million books? Have all your kids sitting on books all day long. A little bit about our hotel. It was formerly named the Chateau Bourbon. Hyatt bought it out while we were down there in February. They have been revamping it. And so now it's going to be called the Hyatt French Quarter. Ladies, we took a picture of just kind of a look at what the rooms look like for you guys. No, actually, this is a good example of what the rooms are going to look like in the Hyatt French Quarter. Catherine was down, Catherine was in there, and she's like, that's exactly what they look like. And some of the rooms there's plenty of space, and some of them have these couches that will pull out for like a twin sofa sleeper type thing. Some don't have that, but you know, you're on your list for adults to bring sleeping bag and pillow just in case. Okay, just to take a quick peek as to where our hotel is in reference to the other kind of main areas that we're going to be partaking in. If you Google Map, right next to the river here is the convention center. And again, as you can see by the oval, very large. And then just a walk up the boulevard, and then you're going to be Canal Street is kind of a major street through the downtown French Quarter area of New Orleans. And our hotel is right on the corner of Canal and Bourbon Street. So you can see in reference to the Superdome, makes a nice little triangle, which I'm actually really excited for, because for our launch times and things like that in the morning, when we go straight from the hotel to the Dome, or straight from the hotel to the convention center, or straight to the ballroom, you know, we're not going to have as great of a distance to walk as some other hotels might be. One little point of interest is that right in the middle of all that is a brand new grocery store that opened up, and it is a gigantic grocery store that's got gluten-free. It's got everything that you could want, including salad, pizza, frozen treats. You forget your toothbrush, etc., etc. So, transportation at the gathering, real quickly. There are streetcars that you'll see running throughout the town. If you go to Google and you type in streetcar map New Orleans, this is what you'll see. Our hotel is located right here on Canal Street, and most of the streetcars run along Canal or hook up with Canal. If you have free time to go out and kind of venture around a little bit, I strongly recommend that you hop onto the St. Charles streetcar And you could ride it to about this point, and then you ride it back. But there's places along the way, there's food places along the way that we've talked about, or that have been on the Northeast Minnesota Synod Journey Facebook page that we've recommended for your group. But that experience of riding the streetcar is kind of a neat one, and it'll get you away a little bit from the large group of the gathering. But along, this area is a very safe spot to be in. So, in regards to transportation, you can't bank on, that's it? That's it? Okay. I got my 10-minute warning. Start walking now. Start getting in shape, getting ready for what you're going to be doing. You can't bank on the streetcars to get from point A to point B. You're going to have to count on your feet. Okay? And so transportation is provided on the Practice Justice Day. And just a little information about the streetcar. It's $1.25 to ride it one way, but then you'll have to get off. To get back on, it's $1.25 to ride it back. Or you could just pay $3 at the little kiosk right outside the hotel, and that'll get you on and off it all day as much as you want. Food, if you've been looking at the Facebook page, we've been throwing lots of recommendations out. Champion Square is one of those options from 4 to 6 o'clock, along with area restaurants. Every one of those dots is a restaurant, and our hotel is right here, so you can get an idea of all the different possible places you can take your group. Some of these places, whether you're 30, 40 people, they'll be able to handle you. You just got to take a little time to look online and make a plan. Price range for breakfast, $5 to $12 to go out and eat for breakfast. Lunch, $8 to $15. Supper is going to be more in that $15 to $25. So suggested budget of $30 to $40 for that day. You might not have breakfast eaters in your group, so you can do some different options for lunch and supper. But again, you're going to want to make sure you have a plan. And some tips about that is to find out what your group eats. Okay, if your whole group doesn't eat seafood, well, that eliminates some of the restaurants. Makes it pretty easy for you. But you don't want to go into New Orleans cold. You want to make sure that you've got a plan. Okay, you've got to print off the information, phone numbers, locations of where these restaurants are at, and have 2 or 3 options for each of the different meals in case you get to a restaurant and it's just jam-packed and you aren't able to make it in. Have maps, phone numbers. A little thing about tips and gratuity. If almost every single one of the places that is sit down, if you have a party, a group of 6 or more people, 18% gratuity is going to be added to the bill. So you're going to need to factor that in because that's going to make a huge difference in regards to your budgeting and what you've been working to fundraise. Okay? There is no separate checks at the sit-down places. So you as your adult leaders, you're going to need to make a plan with the kids of how everything is going to get paid for. Check your receipts, make sure everything's correct, and then cash or debit credit cards is going to be the best way. Most places will not accept checks or traveler's checks. I don't know about traveler's checks specifically, but cash or debit credit card is going to be the best.
And portions are huge.
Yes.
When we went in February, we shared almost every meal and we were more than full and could not finish some things even with splitting. So.
But I finished all of mine. But portions are big. Portions are big. She is right. They're very generous. I mean, food is a big part of the cost. Okay. Just a couple pictures of the grocery store called Roos's. But it's like, as you can see, typical grocery store, lots of things. The nice little thing is that over in the freezer section, the ice cream section, they have these little like $1.20 little things of Butterfinger, Crunch, Kit Kat type ice creams. Make a sweet treat for your kids as you're walking back from the dome one evening. And pizza and lots of other things to be served. Okay? Across from the hotel, directly across the street on the other side of Canal, we have a CVS pharmacy. 1 more block down is a Walgreens. 2 more blocks over is another Walgreens. So for those snacky things, instant oatmeal things you've forgotten, stuff like that, another option, and they keep it very well stocked. They're prepared for us. They're used to Mardi Gras and large events, so they can handle it. Free time. You're going to have some free time in the afternoon during the days when you're not doing your discipleship tour or building into your discipleship tour. A couple of tips for that is put the gathering events into your schedule first, like we talked about. But make sure for everything, again, that you're planning walking time. Okay? It's going to take a while to move. 34,000 of us have invaded downtown New Orleans, and so we're going to be bumping into each other and streets are narrow. Mark the areas on your map. have multiple options for each of the time, and be open to new things. Your kids might be tired, they might be hot, and you know, a couple of them might want to just, I want to go back to the hotel and just sleep. This is, again, where you need to be an able adult, because a couple weeks down the road, they're going to wish they would have pushed a little bit harder. They're going to wish they would have seen this. I completely did not get to see the French market in 2009. We were doing some other things, but I'm like, how did I miss the French market? So a couple of free opportunities for some free time. The Algiers ferry ride, which loads down by the aquarium, it's free to ride back and forth. They shuttle cars, they shuttle people to the other side of the river. And so all you have to do is load up, go to the other side, get a nice view of the city, take some pictures, things like that, and come back. It takes half hour, 45 minutes. French market, you'll find out more, and Google search that. Lots of music, food, shopping, things like that to do. And then Jackson Square, where you see all the artists hanging their artwork up on the fence. There's also entertainers that will pop in, do different things. The horse and buggy rides, lots of neat things to see there. And then of course the St. Charles streetcar is a recommendation by me. Safety and security, water, 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 and no flip-flops. Those are going to be some of the key things you keep hearing from us. Please discourage the flip-flops. Number one cause of injuries on these gatherings is improper footwear, twisted ankles, sprains, etc. Travel in groups of 3 or more and have an adult with when you're out and about in the town. When you're in the practice peacemaking center, that might be an opportunity where you can let your group divide up a little bit and explore, maybe in pairs of 2 or things like that. But around the town, we highly recommend groups of 3. Cell phones are encouraged, but make sure as an adult you've got every kid's cell phone number in your phone. Every adult has every kid's cell phone number in their phone. If you get split up, wherever you happen to be, have a designated spot where you're going to meet. Wristbands need to be worn at all times. Oh, and carry a marker. I have an inflatable sword that's about 4 feet long, bright orange, that when we're out walking about or leaving the dome, I blow that up, I hold it in the air, and the kids know where Chad is from miles away. I recommend having something like that when you're all moving in large groups. And be street smart. We talked about that a little bit. Okay. Souvenir shops. Lots of souvenir shops. You're going to want to go in and out of these things. All the souvenir shops are pretty much the same as far as pricing and what they have. But I want to let you know that there's going to be things that look like icy machines swirling around. Those aren't icy machines if they don't say icy. So they're alcoholic drinks, margaritas, etc. And so they're right in there in the souvenir shops, CVS pharmacy, things like that. There's also sex-related items mixed right into all of the other souvenirs. It might be a New Orleans Saints Mardi Gras necklace, it might be a famous cartoon character, and then there might be a woman's chest hanging off of a Mardi Gras necklace, okay? Just make sure that you let your congregation, not your congregation. Talk to your parents a little bit and educate them on some of the stuff that you're going to be seeing when you're down there. It's part of the culture. It's mixed right in. And then again, don't forget no flip-flops. So your approach to Bourbon Street, our hotel is right on the corner of Canal and Bourbon. So what makes up the culture? What are we going to see? It's a place of celebration, rich cultural history, restaurants, music, the jazz, the art, all this stuff. Just amazing when you get down there. But there is also another side. There is also the gentlemen's clubs. There's going to be beer. There's open drinking out on the streets and things like that. And so you need to talk to your parents. You need to talk to your kids. Let them know that this is stuff that's going to be open and right in front of you, which for some of them, especially, I was living in Walker, a small town, you wouldn't have seen anything like this. And so educate them on your approach to this. Now, being right on Bourbon Street, should you go down Bourbon Street? Well, yeah, there's going to be times you're going to have to go down Bourbon Street probably to get to different restaurants and things like that. During the day, just fine. 11 o'clock at night as a youth group, not recommended. Okay? Totally different scene in the evening, not just from what you're seeing in regards to the stores and stuff like that, but the people that come from outside the area into there. You're going to be probably putting kids and stuff like that in maybe unsafe situations with people that might be intoxicated. So, And again, you're going to be the adult, you're going to be setting the tone, you're creating the guidelines, not necessarily the youth are going to be telling you what they want to do. And it's critical that you're open and honest and you have discussions with them before, during, and after the gathering about everything that you're going to see, the culture, the life in New Orleans. Mission Investment Fund, if you haven't already investigated this or haven't already got one, the notes are on your PowerPoint. Take a look at that. Feel free to talk to me if you have any questions, but that's an easy way for you to be able to have access to some money while you're down in the gathering. ATMs, things like that, not as trustworthy necessarily as Mission Investment Fund and some of the things that they provide for you. And they've got stuff set up specifically for the gathering. Okay. Real quick, a couple of additional notes, things to bring. We talked a little bit about the snacks. Some suggestions people have had is that if you have some kids that maybe aren't big breakfast eaters or you've got a small group, instant oatmeal packets, things you can just make in your hotel room with the coffee maker or whatever that's in there. Crystal Light packets to add to the water. So it's, I love water, but I can't drink water all the time. I always have to add a little flavor, things like that that's available. And Cliff energy bars, some little things that you can just quick throw out to a kid if they're feeling a little low. Water bottles, keep it on you 24/7. Make sure you've got some cash for situational things. And if you're looking at restaurants and things like that, call ahead, check about reservations for your group once you're putting your schedule together. And take the name of the person that is taking your reservation. So if you get to the restaurant, you can say, well, I spoke to Jimmy. Jimmy said that we were okay for this particular time. Those little things really make a difference. Exchange items, sometimes groups, they might, during the gathering, they might come up to you and say, hey, we're from Iowa, here's a corn keychain representing our state. I don't know, it's corn. You might want to talk to the group or come up with some ideas or things, little bracelets, keychains, something that represents your area that you can exchange with someone if they exchange something with you. Or you can go around and pass them out to people. And last but not least, don't forget, no flip-flops, please. Okay? Real quickly, a couple of online sites to watch. The Gathering website, I can't stress this enough. You can't just solely bank on everything that we are talking about at these trainings and telling you. 70% of this stuff, you're going to have to do some research on your own. They are set up that website, and Catherine's got great links off of the Northeast Minnesota Synod website to particular things that might be hard to navigate or find on the ELCA site. But make sure you take a look at the Getting Ready materials, some of those Bible studies. The recommendation was, it's kind of hard sometimes to get all these in throughout the year with your meetings and everything that you've got to be doing. If you can't do anything else, do the first one and the last one to help prepare your group for the gathering and the themes throughout the day. Another thing on the sites is your congregational site where you put in your congregational ID and your primary leader email address. If you are going on the Synod Journey, do not change anything on the congregational site. All that is the paperwork that we're filling out and turning into Catherine, and I'll let you speak a little bit on it.
I just want to say a note for that, just for Journey leaders. It's okay to go on there and look, especially as stuff is coming out May 15th, the practice justice assignments are going to come up, so go in and take a look at that. Don't make changes, especially right now as your forms are coming in, we're going to be making some of those changes. And don't panic if you have had changes either with adult leaders or cancellations of kids and it's not changed. There's a reason why we haven't messed with that yet. I'll be doing that in the next week or so in order to get the final payment turned in. So just know that we know who's going and who's not from your groups, and you're all good no matter what shows up there.
So this is what it's going to look like on your congregational site, telling you about the project, sites, launch time, etc. Okay. OldLutheran.com, they are the proud sponsors. If they got some t-shirts, things like that, if you're looking for something for your group to have all the same shirt, different days, and you want them based around the theme, they've got stuff available. And then the last one is NewOrleansOnline.com. Has some great information when you're looking at places to eat, things to do, things to see, stuff like that. Found lots of information there. Okay? I think we've talked about most of that stuff, so At this time, on those sheets, does anybody have any questions that they wrote down that did not get answered during the presentation?
So you talked, are there going to be water coolers around the city again like there were in hotels and things to fill with water bottles?
Yeah, they're working with hotels to try to make sure that they've got water out, and especially at the convention center and dome areas, to have that as much as possible.
Is there a water bottle you would recommend? I mean, should we like go out and buy a water bottle so all our kids have one? Or?
Well, yeah, Allison, if you want to hold up. She was the proud winner and responded to the email on Facebook on the Northeast Minnesota Synod and won a Old Lutheran, it's a flat water bottle. And so when it is empty, the kids are able to roll it up and stick it in their pocket. Those are $5 through Old Lutheran, but I've also seen them at the Dollar Tree. So if you didn't budget for $5 a person in your group for something like that, but you want to give them a gift, it doesn't have the gathering insignia and logo and stuff on it, but I've seen them at the Dollar Tree. And so that would be one that you might find pretty handy. But then again, you know, I've got one that's got duct tape on it that I'm pretty partial to. And so you'll probably see me carrying because it holds a little bit more water, but it's, yeah.
Also, is there microwaves in the hotels or toasters or anything, or we?
There are in the hotels that we have in Gulfport, there are refrigerators and microwaves. There are not microwaves at the Hyatt. I had a text last night from someone that had talked to the Hyatt that said that there are refrigerators, but I'm going to confirm that because I am not so sure about that. And I'll put that out on the update.
And there's two different Hyatts that are going to be used for the gathering. There's one that's over by the convention center, or is it the Dome? Convention center.
There's one by the Dome.
One by the Dome. And then there's the new Hyatt in the French Quarters. So make sure that you discriminate those when you're looking for stuff online. I'm sure that you're probably just sitting there going, whoa. So as questions are coming, put them up on Facebook, because I guarantee you, in this whole synod of 500 people that are going on this, you're not going to be the only one that's going to have that question. So post it on Facebook. One of the leaders will get a response to you back. If you find out great deals like that or things like that, share them with the group. Okay? We're all in the same boat together, so the more we can share and learn from each other, the better off we're going to be. So, great.